Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Welcome, everybody. We're glad to have you with us. It is Wednesday, January 5th, 2022. I am joined on screen by Megan and June, and hope everybody can see all of us here, the three of us at least on screen. And we are glad to have you. We are on a brand new platform starting today. Instead of being on our traditional webinar jam platform, now we are on a Zoom call through our new private network. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how all that works. Hi, June. It's good to see you. Megan, we got you. Hi, how are you?
Hi, doing well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I was thinking back a year ago, we were ready to do a webinar, and it was January 6th, and we had to cancel. So a lot's happened in a year, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Definitely.
And a lot has happened in the bar exam and in the bar exam world. We've took off a couple of weeks for the holidays, and we're going to try and catch everybody up on the news around the bar exam world. That's one thing that we're going to do today. Secondly, we have a lot of questions from students. I think that's fair to say, right? That have come in the last few weeks. And most of those questions we had answered directly. A lot of them apply broadly. And so we wanted to put them into today's Q&A, because I know that there are often, when you ask a question, there's often people that want that information as well. We want to make sure that we are giving that information out to everybody as well. So we're going to be doing that. Next week, we will return to our regularly scheduled series of bar legal problems that keep you awake at night, and we will start dealing with those. But we felt like we had so many questions and so much new and different today that we wanted to keep this simpler. So I think I got all that in there. Did I get it right, Megan?
Wonderful. Yeah. So let's start out by, Jackson, if you want to talk about the new community group site. I know obviously the people who are on the call live with us now have figured it out because they had to get to this call through the new site. But for people who are watching this later and maybe were like, I missed the boat somewhere on how to jump on this call, what's going on with the new site?
Yeah. Right before Christmas, this is something we had been planning for a while. We decided that it would be important we wanted to move away from Facebook, not because Facebook is necessarily bad, but it is, but mostly because we just thought that there was too much distraction on Facebook. You get into your Facebook and suddenly the feed is moving around and things that appear disappear, and there's ads and there's all these other things going on. So we had been researching for a while, and June had been working with a company called Mighty Networks that has their own private community platform, and she really liked them. And she asked me to look into it. And so I started looking into it, and we decided to make the switch during this break that we had over the last few weeks. And so we made that switch. And I think right now we've got about just under 100 of our registered students already there. Now, that's a small fraction of the number of people we had on our Facebook group. So we know there are a lot of you that haven't made the switch yet. And we set up a private secret group within our community group that we call the Extra Mile. So if you're a registered Celebration Bar Review student, you will get an invitation to the Extra Mile. Now, if you are watching or listening to this later and you say, I didn't get it, send an email to June@celebrationbarreview.com. She will send you the link with the invitation. You do need an invitation to join. It's a private group. Nobody else sees it. It's not on Facebook. Then we have another secret group in that broad setting for our Abundance for Bar Study MasterClass. That is a separate group, and you should have gotten an invitation there if you've been through the MasterClass. Again, if you've been through it and did not have the invitation to join that group, contact June and she'll get it for you. And then third, we had a private Facebook group called the Bar Exam Success Network. This was not for our registered students. It was just more front-facing for the whole world. And we still have a group for you, but we've moved from Facebook and we're just into our Celebration Bar Review community. And if you are interested in joining, again, send us a note or just go to the Bar Exam Success Network page on Facebook. There is a link there to send you over to the new site. And the difference between what our registered students see and the non-registered students is, of course, our registered students are getting proprietary information, faster updates, newer information, these Q&A webinars, and so on. But there's plenty of great information for any bar taker on the community group itself. So that's what it's doing. I like the new site. What do you think about it, Megan?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. As somebody who is not really a Facebook user, I was happy to have an alternative. So yeah, hopefully people get some good stuff out of it and find it helpful and easy to navigate. But as always, let us know if you have questions about it.
Yeah, and one of the things we're going to try and do is do some live pop-ins there. We've got the ability to do that. So as we get our feet under us with all the different things, we're going to do that. There's the opportunity for polls. Lots of opportunity for chat. We've set up topics for our registered students based on your exam jurisdiction. So if you're a Florida bar taker, we've got a group for you within the extra mile for Florida bar takers. Because one of the things that Megan and June and I hear all the time is people saying, I want to talk to other students that are in a similar situation. So this is going to be your chance to do that. And we're excited about it. We think the opportunity here is great with a lot less distraction, just a lot less going on, so you can get right into it and go. So check into that. Let us know any questions or problems that you're having, thoughts, and feel free to contribute. It's wide open and you can do that, and we hope that you will. Okay, so I think that's all I've got to say about the community group.
All right. Next, let's turn to some COVID updates, because I know I'm getting a lot of questions from people, understandably, in my calls with them about this. So as of right now, everything's still in person. The big reason for this, I think, is that the NCBE, who gives the UBE, but also gives the MBE questions, they have said that they will not be giving an online option. So that means even if you're in Florida, California, Georgia, and you're thinking, gosh, what are we going to do? Is it going to change? They're really beholden to the NCBE. So until the NCBE says, we'll give the MBE online, there's really functionally no way for anybody to give the exam online. So that's where we are currently with the test for February.
You're going to take the test in person. I mean, that if you're taking it in February of 2022, it's going to be in person. We've crossed what I think is the final. If they were going to make a change, they would have made it over the Christmas break, in my view. So I think we're now committed to an in-person exam. It will stay that way. I don't believe that they can change it at this point. And no matter how bad COVID gets in any particular jurisdiction, it doesn't appear that that's going to change, no matter what the bar examiners of that state would want to do. One thing we should note, however, is a couple of states have started to put limits, right, Megan, on how many people can sit for the exam. I'm aware of DC and Maryland in particular doing that, right?
Yeah. And then you should, of course, be checking with your jurisdiction about any updates on requirements. I know somebody, I think Julio just pointed out about Massachusetts. You have to show your vaccine record to get in. You want to make sure that whatever the requirements are, they may have changed since you signed up, right? So it might be now, maybe you have to show a vaccine record, or you need a negative test within a certain number of days or hours of the exam. You need to check that information and make sure that you know the most current requirements in order to sit, because we may see some shifting in that. That's where the examiners don't really have the ability to unilaterally move it online, but they do have the ability to make different decisions about location changes. We may see some places split up a little bit into different locations. We certainly know they have the ability to require different testing or vaccination requirements. So please be up on all that and making sure that you have everything prepared for you.
I would order your rapid test at home now. I'd order those kits now, because it may take you a good few weeks to get them. And if you need them, you don't want to be stuck trying to find one at the last minute. It's just more stress that you probably don't need.
Yeah. So definitely, we will keep people updated. If there's any changes with all of the major changes, we're not going to do the jurisdiction by jurisdiction, but if there's any major changes, we will keep people updated. But I think certainly you've got to keep studying with the mindset of I'm taking it in person. That also means you should be doing things like, if you're taking the February exam, I would be using a scratch piece of paper when you're practicing your essays. You want to get comfortable again, especially if you've taken it the last couple of times where it was online. You want to get comfortable again with, how does it look to take some notes? How does it feel to maybe underline, circle, put notes in the margins of my essays, things like that, and the performance.
Yeah, and I'd also study wearing a mask and type wearing a mask. And you're going to be taking the test, I think, almost certainly having to wear a mask in a lot of these jurisdictions. Now, some places, pretend that you don't need them, but I think most jurisdictions, you're going to put 3,000 people in a room. I think they're going to say you got to wear a mask, even in Florida. I'd start studying with a mask just to get used to it, because it is different, as we talked about last year and the year before. Wearing a mask for 6 hours a day is different than wearing it for an hour or two. So you got to get used to it.
Yeah, it is very strange to think about how we were giving people that advice 2 years ago, and it was this new odd thing. And now it almost seems like you have your favorite mask and that's really comfortable and fits your ears nicely. Yes. All right, great. Anyway, just keep your eyes on that as always. Another change that I want to point out is Michigan. They have decided, I think it was like right before we went on all the breaks, they are pushing back their switch to the UBE. They were going to do it in July 2022. They were going to become a UBE jurisdiction. That's been pushed back to February of 2023. So just one exam date. But it's important to know, if you were planning, I know we have some students who are planning on taking that July UBE for Michigan, it will not be given as a UBE exam until February of 2023. They just weren't ready to do it.
But another alternative here is, if you were planning on taking that date, you could take the UBE somewhere else. And typically when a state has transferred into the UBE, like Texas did and New York did, they let a 6-month prior UBE score be transferred back in. So in other words, if you don't want to wait till February of 2023 to sit in Michigan for the UBE, you could take the July 2022 UBE somewhere else. If you get the score that Michigan will require, you could then push that into Michigan. And if they follow the precedent of other states, they're going to allow that score even before they've made the formal switch to the exam. So something to consider and discuss and check with the examiners. Don't take our word for it, but this is what's happened. This happened in Texas. People did this and they did it in New York as well. I think it's something to consider.
Yeah, definitely not a reason to panic if you were one of those takers. So the nice thing about the UBE is that you don't have to take it in the specific state. Okay, let's move into some questions now. Jim, I wanted to know if it's acceptable to skip down to the later sections in the course, specifically the exam practices, while going through the sections. I want to start practicing mock exams on my Saturdays. That way it's not end loaded at the end of the course. And that way I can track my progress, but I didn't want to mess up the process.
I'd be interested in your response to this, Megan, as well. I think it's okay. It would not be my favorite, because I think that time could be used more productively moving through the substantive study. But I understand that people want to get the feedback. The only caution I would give you if you're using that approach is, don't take the results all that seriously. If you haven't been through everything, those results are they're going to skew. I think you're going to be getting lower scores than you should, because we have planned those tests after you've gone through a certain level of review and study in the first place. What's your take?
Yeah, I would not do it, not because there's something horribly wrong about it, but I just don't know how useful it would be, to be honest. I get the idea of feeling like, but then I can check it off because I did it. But the problem is, it's not really about, can I check something off the list? It's more like the process of learning as you're doing it. And those really are just best designed, I think, for when you've been through the whole course. And then you can use them to see things like, where do I need to focus my review? What's my weak area? What's a stronger area for me? And to, like you said, Jackson, get a better feel for how you're actually doing. Whereas if you do them now, I just don't know how instructive that really is. We have a ton of practice for you to do in this subject specific part of the course. So it's not like we're saying write one essay and then there's no other essays. If you want more practice in that subject, do the individual one-off essays for sure. Like, I 100% think that's a great idea. But I don't think it would be particularly helpful to take a full length practice test. Let's say you take all of the essay exam when you're like, oh, but I haven't really studied that subject yet. I just don't know how helpful that would be. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, the predecessor course and our course together, we've now got over 55 years of experience. There's some wisdom that comes from that. There's a reason we do it the way we do it. And I think when people start jumping around, they run the risk of gaps and mistakes that are unnecessary, and they get overwhelmed. Ultimately, those are the students that come back to us in 3 or 4 weeks and say, I can't get through everything and I'm really frustrated. So I would encourage you to follow the course structure the way it's laid out, unless there's just some incredibly compelling reason to jump around.
Yeah. Okay, great. Next, 2 mind map questions I'm going to give you. First is, I see the BarMap template is referenced throughout the course, and I'm wondering where that's located. And then second is, how do you add to a mind map?
Okay, so BarMaps is a separate product. BarMaps is a product that includes 3 elements. It's got mind maps for every subject and into a couple of levels. It's also got interactive videos that are time-stamped, and it's got fast finish audio versions of the lectures. So BarMaps is not included in your course. It's something extra. You can order it within the course. In the very first section under course walkthrough, there's a assignment about upgrades and resources. You can find the link there as well. And that's the BarMaps product that we're talking about. In terms of mind maps, the question was, how do you edit a mind map? And we discovered 3 weeks that we were off, there were some interesting things. We use a program called mindmeister.com to put up our computer mind maps. There was a setting change that they made that caused our mind maps to not become editable for a period of a couple of weeks. We found that, we fixed it. All of the mind maps now can be edited when you're in BarMaps. So what happens is you simply download a copy of our BarMap first, and then you can edit your own copy. The only thing we're asking you to do is don't edit our master copy, because then everybody it would be chaos, I think. So just download it and then work on it. And again, in the community group, there is a post showing you how to do that process. It's actually very simple. It does require a subscription with MindMeister, which will cost you, I think, maybe $50. It's well worth it to do that. Now, if you don't want to do that, as Megan has always said, you can write your own mind maps. You can take a piece of paper and some markers and go ahead and do it. There's nothing stopping you. And you can take our mind maps, download them, and print them out and use them that way, or even just copy from them if you want. So lots of different options there. But the thing we really want to emphasize is do a mind map. That's the study tool. It's not the technique, and we're going to get to this with photo reading as well. It's not the technique of doing it, it's the doing of it that makes a difference, right?
Definitely. That's like many things in life. It's the actual getting your hands dirty and doing it that leads to the results that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Funny how that works. Next month, I plan to purchase the full course. Will I be able to access the study materials from my iPhone? Did you say the Florida bar is taken on laptops now?
Okay. Yeah, 2 things. So yes, you can study using your iPhone or any smartphone, Android. All of the material is mobile friendly. The course platform is mobile friendly. We've worked hard to make sure that worked that way. You can watch videos, you can do everything, you can do the PDFs and so on. Now, you're not going to want to download those things to your phone. So you're going to want to use the digital copies and read on your phone if you have the eyesight to do that. Clearly, I do not. When it comes to taking the bar exam, however, you cannot take the bar exam on your iPhone. That is going to require either handwritten or using a laptop computer. We obviously recommend the laptop, even if you're a slow typist. But you cannot. I've had people say, can I write my essays on a phone? And no, you can't.
Really? You've had people ask? Oh, that's a new one for me. I haven't heard that.
I got that question the last couple of months. So no, as far as I know, no jurisdictions.
Oh.
First question about study strategies says that in my last review, I did 100 practice questions for each of the 7 MBE topics, separate from the online practice exams. This time around, should I start with question 101 for the topics or go back to question 1? I think that in this particular situation, if you only did the first 100 questions, I would go ahead and jump into question 101 and start working forward from there. That's going to give you just under 100 questions in all of these subjects. And then you'll have the OPEs, you'll have the full-length tests, and you'll have the brand new 2021 complete practice exam, CPE, that we've added to the course. So I think that's plenty of questions. And then if you find that you're having difficulty somewhere, some area that a subset of a subject, then go back to that subject in those first 100 questions and do some if you need them. But I think starting at question 101 should work for you. All right. Next question. We have a student who had a request for a waiver in Maryland, and that was denied, and they had registered then for the July 2022 exam, jumping over UBE to Texas. And they said, I'm partway through the program, I'm in civil procedure, and what do I do with that? Do you recommend I start all over again from the beginning or study at a slower pace, like 10 hours a week? I don't want you to go back to the beginning. What I do want you to do is study at a slightly slower pace, go to 10 hours a week. I think that's plenty if you're a July student. I think just go with that and don't have to go back. You don't need to start all over again, but make sure you keep studying. I think that the key here is to go ahead and keep the momentum and don't let that stop. Next question I've got has to do with photo reading. Students said, I'm having a hard time catching on to photo reading, and I fear that my choice to register to learn photo reading is going to make it hard for me to pass in February. I'm going to do my best, but should I postpone so that I can learn photo reading? Now, I met with this student, we talked, and it's a good question. I think that what happens is that for a lot of people, they get caught up in technique, whether it's photo reading or really any part of the course, mind mapping, whatever it might be. The technique isn't as important as the doing, as we said earlier. And really with photo reading, it's not all that complicated. It's mostly flipping the pages. The big part of photo reading is activating what you've done. And that comes from techniques like mind mapping, but also going through the lectures and the question practice. Photo reading actually speeds you up in terms of your study. It doesn't slow you down. So there's no inherent reason to postpone the exam just because you're learning photo reading. And we have students registering. In fact, we have several students that purchased photo reading today. There is plenty of time to learn photo reading for the February 2022 exam. It takes 8 hours total to get through the entire photo reading course from Learning Strategies. It's done an hour a day while you're studying for the bar. So really pretty simple to do and to add on, and then we integrate it into the course. So I don't want that to be a reason to not take the exam. As it turned out with this particular student, there were some other issues that really had nothing to do with photo reading that were reasons to take or not take the exam. But I think it's important to just keep in mind that's not a reason to not sit for the exam because you have to learn photo reading. That's not our goal here at all. Okay, hope that helps.
One question. So Nicole is wondering, when's the best time to start BarMaps, or will BarMaps help her if she's having trouble with the mind mapping?
Yeah, BarMaps should be started right away. And the reason is that it gives you the mind maps right away. It will help you with the mind mapping, undoubtedly. It's every subject. It will also then be a tool you use later in review when you want to go deeper, like this student that wanted the shorter outlines. Let's say you're having problems with hearsay exceptions in evidence. You just go to the evidence bar map, and there's a section, it identifies the part of the lecture that's just that topic, so you can get just that piece of the lecture without all 6 hours of lecture. And it then gives you at the final piece, the fast finish audios, which run under 2 hours, so you can just turn them on and listen to those when you're sleeping at night, because why not? And so that's a really useful tool at the end. So it's really a 3-part tool: BarMaps immediately, the videos as you're going through for greater depth, and then the fast finish audio at the end. We've got what she called motivation questions here at the end. So let me grab some of those. We certainly know that at this stage, when we come around the holidays, and June has dealt with this with mindset, we're all looking forward to the holidays. We're all psyched up for it. And then, of course, in 2021 and 2020, it's been crazy. And it just, a lot of things go off the rails. And then you come around that, you get on the other side of January 1st, and it's like, oh my gosh, the bar exam's right here. It's going to smack me in the face. And that's pretty tough motivationally. So we had some questions over the last couple of weeks that kind of talked into this. So let me give you a sense of this. One student wrote to us that they're having a tough time keeping their momentum going. The student said, I'd like to practice additional essays and multiple choice questions. Sometimes my time is limited. I'm in the car waiting for the kids, waiting for an appointment. I don't have the time or concentration to read an outline or listen to a lecture, but I might have time to answer a few MBE questions, or maybe I've only got time to do an extra essay question. Is there a way to access additional questions, not as part of the program, but just as a side practice? We addressed this a little bit earlier today. We don't think you need extra material. You've got 2,300 MBE questions built into the course. You have hundreds of essays. You have performance tests. It's all there. So we don't keep anything on the side for people. And we don't recommend going out and getting flashcards or somebody else's program or a supplement or something else, because it tends to overwhelm people. If you're having a tough time keeping the momentum going, adding more work actually isn't going to help your momentum. In most cases, it's going to slow you down and overwhelm you. And I think that's not a good thing either. I would say if you've got a few minutes in the car, what I would do is listen to a part of a lecture, or I would do a little bit of reading. I think trying to do MBE questions in the car is, I've never been a big fan of that, randomly doing a few questions, because I think doing the question really comes with then looking at and adding the to your notes and your mind map. So I'm not a big fan of doing that. And I would definitely not suggest writing an essay while you're waiting in the pickup line for your kids. I just think your focus is not going to be enough. So I wouldn't do that. And as we were talking about with the student that asked about Wi-Fi on the airplane, sometimes it's okay to just shut down and just listen to some music or turn on a Paraliminal and just take a mental break. You're doing plenty of studying. So the way you keep the momentum going is to stay structured and not trying to cram it into little wedges, in my experience. I think that makes it harder for most people. Another question we got around motivation in the same vein was a student said, I'm finding myself getting really defeated regarding multiple choice questions. This student said, I photo read, I create mind maps, I try to listen to the lectures. They said, then I try to get to the questions and add to the mind map. Okay, all of that is good. And then here's where I think they miss the boat. They say, with the dismal scores I've received, and I would stop right there and say, there's no such thing as a dismal score 7-8 weeks out. You're learning as you go through. So it's not a question of how many you're getting. I actually don't care how many you're getting. What I'd like you to do is, after you answer a question, go back to the outline, work on the mind map, and add to it if you don't understand the concept. But the student says, nothing's getting any clearer and my scores aren't going up. I think that what's happening here is that you stop really trusting your intuition. You start pressing and trying to understand and know it. That's usually when scores start to drop. And I think in that situation, you got to be very careful to not overwork it. We do a photo reading test, and I had a student that gave me their results, and this was typical. Their scores didn't go up in the photo reading test from a clean look at the questions. Then they photo read and took the questions again, and then they did a mind map and did the questions a third time, and their score didn't go up. And they said, why didn't it go up? Well, in general, it's because they're not trusting that they know the material. They're still trying to control and own it, and you can't do that. You've got to let go and just respond to the material. Megan and I did a series of webinars in which we talked through 10 really tough MBE questions. It's built into your course. You can find it. And we use the selective intuition method, and it's a great opportunity for you to see that in practice. But generally what happens is that when people start pressing, when they get tense, or they feel defeated, as this student said, that what happens is they start trying harder. And counterintuitively, it's not about trying harder, it's about relaxing more, it's letting go and really trusting that. But even if you don't see the results today, the results will be there and they start to come. But most often in this kind of a course, it's not a light switch. You don't go from failure to success overnight. It's more like a dimmer switch. It starts to dial up and you start to see improvement. So what you need to do to keep progressing is to just be nicer to yourself, let go, and don't worry about your results. As soon as you stop worrying about the results, when you become process oriented instead of results oriented, you'll see the results getting better. And we see this exam after exam, student after student. Finally, the student said, should I try to find easier questions? No, the questions are all what they are. Just do the questions, but don't worry about if you get them right or wrong. Just worry about process. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? And trust that the process will work for you, even if you don't see the results right now. And the best example I can give you of that, I think for most people, is watching a child learn to walk. They get up, they fall down. They get up, they trip. They get up, they fall over. It just happens over and over again until they can take a couple of steps. And then they fall down. And then they can take a few more steps and then they fall down. The routine. That's what happens here. But I see very few adults that crawl. So I'm pretty sure most of us learn how to do this in spite of the falling and the mistakes. So be kind to yourself, be gentle, and I think you'll be okay. All right. Two more quick questions here and we'll wrap up. One is, who can I speak to if I feel alone and lost and making very little progress? I think that's a great opportunity to do the Calming the Chaos program with June. I think she's ideally suited to help you with that. She's not going to teach you law, but she's going to talk about that feeling of being alone and not making progress. And we see big changes when people go through that program. I would check that out. Another student said, photo reading's not clicking for me. Yeah, again, I would say what I said before to other students. Photo reading is not about the technique. It's just doing it and trusting the process. So often I think people photo read and they expect to have a moment, an aha moment when they see and know everything. They have a photographic memory. It doesn't happen that way. What happens is you know it at a deeper level. And until you start accessing that, you don't know anything. And so you have this feeling, because it's not satisfying to your conscious mind, that it's not working or not clicking for you. That's not true. It's working just fine, no matter how you're doing it, whether you're doing it well or you're doing it badly, whether you're following all the steps or you're missing some of them. It really doesn't matter. Photo reading works. It's a natural physiological process. So just relax and trust it. It works, and it works really well. All right, last question, I think. Somebody said, multiple choice questions. I hate them. I'm having trouble staying motivated to do them. Yeah, I know, they're tough. I don't blame you. They're hard to do. I would make a game out of it. I would gamify it. I'm going to do a few now. We'll see how I do. And then I'm going to reward myself. And I'm going to add to my mind map whether I get them right or wrong. Again, I think a big part of this is being too focused right now on the result. I don't care how many you get right. If you really want to know, we get all your results when you take your multiple choice practice. And most people at this point are 25 to 40% correct. That's where they are. If you're doing better than 40%, yay. But if you're doing 25 to 40%, you're with almost everybody and you'll be fine. And if you're doing less than 25%, it's not a big deal. I see students every exam who get 10% of these questions correct in practice. And then by the time they get to the exam, they're doing just fine. It all depends on your outlook and your mindset. And if you will stay focused on the process instead of the results, you're going to be okay. All right, let me see if I can grab June back in here. We'll wrap up. I think that's everything I've got. You agree about that process versus results discussion?
I do 100%. Do you remember back a while? It's been a while now, but I kind of took a mini test and I did really well on it. I got like almost all the answers correct. And I talk about this. I'm not an attorney, never been to law school. I talk about this a lot on my group coaching calls. The only reason why I did well is because I have no skin in the game. The outcome does not matter to me. Right. So I was able to just let it flow, and it just, whatever felt right is what I picked. And I talk about that a lot in group coaching. The reason that you're not doing as well is because you're so tied to the outcome.
Yeah.
Right now, again, 40%, yay, that's great. What do I need to know to get to 50? Like Jackson says, it's a game. Anybody who's ever played a video game, you don't just know it and get top score from the get-go. You play and then you fail and then you play again and you fail again. If you've ever played Candy Crush, the drama, but you don't stop playing.
Right.
You get back in the game and you figure it out on what you need to do differently. And that's what all of this is about. The more you start looking at it with an open mind and that child's mind of learning and excitement, and it's something new of what do I need to know, it takes away a lot of stress.
Yeah, I think so. Good stuff here. Great questions. Thank you all for those. I hope we've gotten everything in the chat box as well. I apologize that Megan had to jump out, but obviously in a crazy COVID world, when the school nurse calls, you got to go. There we go. I hope all of you are staying healthy. Please continue to take good care of yourselves and your families. Continue on with your studies. We will be back next Wednesday. Thank you, June, for covering and picking up here. I do hope everybody has a good study week. We look forward to seeing you in the private community group. Post your questions and comments there. And we will see all of you next Wednesday. And yeah, take care. Be good. Thank you, June. And we'll see all of you then.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.